Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to the State of GovTech 2021. I am Nia Richardson. I'm going to be the moderator for the founder conversation today for economic development and affordable housing. Today, you will get to meet some amazing innovators in the GovTech industry. They are all a part of the CivStart's 2020 cohort. Today, they're going to share some of their challenges, some successes, and really give some perspectives on the sector and where it's headed. So first, before we dive in, I want to go over a couple of housekeeping, or they're making me let you know some of the housekeeping rules. Again, welcome. All attendees' mics must be muted by default. Use the chat function to communicate with your peers and share best practices. Also, your notes in the chat as well. We would love for you guys to share your videos so we can see you, get your reactions, and hopefully once we get through a couple of discussion points, we can start having some dialogue. We'd really love to hear from you as well. You have the opportunity to join a conversation in the startup social time immediately following the sessions. If you have questions, check out the FAQ document in the chat. So let's get started. Okay, great. I see we got a lot of people in here today. So today we're going to talk to 3 different innovators. We are joined today by Thao. He is the Chief Custom Officer for ProcureNow. We have Chris Offensend he's the co-founder and Chief Executive Officer for Qwally, or in Kansas City, we call him Qwally. We have Roshen Sethna, who is the partner with Bloom Housing by Exygy. I get that right? Yes, okay. So let's start with the conversation with some of the big things, and I'll just even start with here. I work with the city of Kansas City, and one of the big topics right now is housing, particularly affordable housing, particularly as we're kind of gone through this pandemic. And so I'm going to ask Roshen to come to the stage with me and give us a little bit of background about what this innovation you've been working on is doing and how it's helping some of the cities that you're working with.
Yeah, thanks, Nia. And so yeah, Exygy itself, we partner with a bunch of different social impact organizations to design and build technology. So we're a team of, designers, software engineers, product managers that work on a range of issues, including affordable housing. So for the past 5 years, we've been working in affordable housing and building out essentially a suite of digital tools that are actually open source. So we're not, in the long run, we don't want to be the only ones that are able to build and contribute to this tool. So they're for any jurisdiction that wants to better manage their housing, deliver their housing, and report on what's actually happening with their affordable housing stock. Cities and counties can make sure that the housing is leased up fairly, reduce vacancy rates, and utilize the data for policy change as well. So the simplest way to kind of describe the tool is that there's kind of 2 sides to it. One is a website where people can, affordable housing seekers can go to search for affordable housing and apply for it online. So you can see all the housing in your jurisdiction, you can see the units available. You can apply for it through what we've built, which is called kind of a common application. So similar, if you think of like the college common application, it's a general common app that you can use to apply to any building in the jurisdiction. So that's an effort we did with housing developers and jurisdictions to create that kind of common app. And so you can submit your application and track it. So that's one side. And then the other side is it's essentially kind of an administrator tool. So it's for housing developers as well as city, county, jurisdictional staff to log in, manage the listings, lease up the building with any applications coming in and things like that. So the main benefit really to jurisdictions is that, you can implement a lot of policies. If you have an inclusionary policy in your jurisdiction, if you want to give preferential treatment to people who've been displaced or implement any other preferences, and there's much more transparency. You have a hold on the affordable housing stock that is actually in your jurisdiction and how it's being kind of utilized or leased up. So that's a really quick overview of what Bloom is. I personally, I was a former housing counselor in Texas. So this is like a project that's been really close to my heart that we've worked on at Exygy for quite a number of years. And right now we started working on it with the city and county of San Francisco. So they actually had this idea to create this product. So we built it for them, and really early on, we collaborated with them to say, hey, we want to build this open source so it can be used for other jurisdictions. It's now being used in 3 other San Francisco Bay Area jurisdictions, and we're talking to cities all over the country to implement it as well.
Yeah, so would you say there is somewhat of a data shortage when it comes to affordable housing, and that this is kind of helping meet that need? Because you say a lot of good things and where it impacts policy and things like that. And I'm new within government. And so I walk in, I'm like, hey, so how are we making decisions? Would you say that this tool really helps push that? And can you give an example of maybe one city you're working with where it has maybe made some impact policy wise?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's such a range of policy. I would say there's programmatic day-to-day policy all the way up to legislative policy of like actual housing creation. So the tool has an impact on a day-to-day basis of like, do we collect social security number in a housing application? Do we do those types of things? And that relates really directly to a lot of equity questions and fairness questions in the housing application process itself. So that's one thing I'll say. There's kind of day-to-day policy. And then at a larger level, you can see who's getting housing, what units tend to be popular when they go online. How many families are getting housed a month and things like that. And so you can use it to influence to say, like, I mean, in the Bay Area, we know we have a housing problem. Like that's not, people don't necessarily need data to know there's a problem.
Right.
But it can help lend more specifics to say, hey, like, we should go after this bond measure. A lot of the jurisdictions we've worked with, one of them has said like, hey, this could influence bond measures. This could influence like how much funding do we need for what types of units, where should we build, things like that.
Yeah, and I wonder if you're seeing the issue being the lack of equity in how affordable housing is applied, or is it more so the issue being the shortage of housing? Like in Kansas City, there's a huge, I think it's like 27,000 housing shortage. Is it kind of a little bit of both, or are you seeing one more than the other in some of the cities that you're working with?
Yeah, like all of the above. There's obviously, we know there's a shortage. I think a lot of people try and tackle the shortage question with, we need to build more, which of course we do. But I think we also need to manage what we have better and make sure that we have a good handle on it, and make sure those units are not either staying vacant or people don't know about them and things like that. So that's an often overlooked non-sexy side of it. Like, why don't we just dig into what we have and make sure it's available for people?
Yeah.
And then 100%, the equity issue is front and center in housing. I mean, I think we see that if there's, strong community-based organizations that are helping a particular demographic, whether it's, racial or gender or whatever, or age wise, that, people have more access because they have a strong, housing counselors or other people to go to. So we want to make the resources like really easy to find, easy to sort through. In the city and county of San Francisco, there's a lot of complex eligibility criteria, like you might need to be a senior or a veteran. And so we want to make those things really transparent and easy because they were really hard to navigate originally.
And then one last question: with the system that you guys have, how beneficial is it for the end user, the person actually applying for the affordable housing, versus how it was before?
Oh my gosh, that's really the central reason that City and County San Francisco decided to build this. I mean, the process was really paper-based. It used to take days to fill out an application. There were different applications for every unit and building in the city. So you had to go in person, see if you had the right paper application. They would ask for a ton of documentation. And then, the eligibility criteria, like I mentioned, were not that transparent. So that was their impetus to say, let's make this process more equitable for people. And so now it takes 15 minutes online. You can copy the same application for different units in the city. So we really centered, and the city also centered the end user in this process. And there were other users, the city, the housing counselors, other people that were involved, but we really put the affordable housing applicant in the center.
You put the citizen first, like as governments, that's our job, is to put citizens first. So thank you, Roshen, for the affordable housing conversation.
Yeah, thanks.
Make sure we include other folks. And we have Thao who's going to join the conversation with us. Thao is doing some amazing things to where he is doing 2 conferences at once. So if you
Right.
see people walking his backgrounds, because he's multitasking right now. So Thao, you have ProcureNow, and procurement is
Yes.
definitely a big deal. And I'm definitely trying to work on ways of how the city leverages its buying power to grow our small businesses. But I don't think
Yeah.
people realize how important procurement is to small businesses locally. Can you give us a little bit about what you do and how you're working with cities around your ProcureNow technology?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And yeah, like was mentioned, welcome to a virtual conference, and also welcome to a real conference, a live in-person conference. I'm at the Florida Association of Special Districts conference, my first conference in over a year for reasons that we all know why. So I'm so grateful that we are at a point in the progression of what's the terrible things that have happened over the last year, that we can actually get together in person. So continue to stay safe, everyone, and to practice getting together responsibly. ProcureNow, yeah. So the Roshen mentioned before, just around like the equity in the process. I wanted to just first start off by saying that, like, a lot of times public procurement pros and buyers, government buyers, they kind of get a bad rap. Like, a lot of folks think that they're like the adversary, that they're getting in the way of the process, that they're kind of like getting in the way on purpose.
Yeah.
And right, you can agree with that sort of like that feeling, that sentiment. And the reality is that, like, they have the same goals that you do. Like, their goal is to take a taxpayer dollar, and to find the most strategic way for a city or a government to spend it in the most cost effective, and just to get the best value out of every single taxpayer dollar. Now, the problem is that it doesn't feel like that. It feels adversarial. It feels like there are big barriers. It feels like blocks. And what ProcureNow realized is that it wasn't public procurement and their policies and rules and procedures that was the problem. It was the technology. It was the technology they were using, or lack of technology that they were using. Paper-based, 10 copies bound and mailed, or the systems that were being used were really hard to sign up for. So in the one hand, we're all talking about fair and open. And then the other hand, we were giving them processes and tools that were not fair, that were not open. They had big barriers, and they were not equitable. They were not guided, both internally for the folks who are working on these important projects within the cities, but also on the supplier side. Like, it was just, anyone here, that's probably most of the people sitting in this room, realize that it feels hard, it feels difficult, it feels like overwhelming. And so what ProcureNow did is that we had a goal of making the public procurement process intuitive and guided, both for the internal customer and the external supplier. And what we came up with was a way for government agencies to be able to collaborate. So if you're in an IT department, or you're in the clerk's office, or you're in whatever office, and you want something, and you want to make sure that you're getting the best value for the budget that you have, you can ask our software, answer some questions, and based off of the type of purchase that you're making, our solution would actually put all the right clauses and language in it, have all the right forms ready to go, so that you don't have to worry about whether, like, what's going out to the public is going to be compliant or not. And then we just built like live chat features inside of the tool, so that, number one, the process of working together on building requirements and specifications was a lot more enjoyable, a lot more intuitive. I know it sounds like, a little oxymoronic, but it's true. And our customers will confirm that, like, the time that it takes them to build an RFP or a bid gets shrunken by like 75 to 90%. Like, that when you use the right tools and you can collaborate in the right way, you can actually build a better RFP or build a better bid. And so you
Which
can
means they can
imagine
put it out faster too, right? And
that.
that helps speed up the time because a
Oh
lot of folks
man,
will complain on the
yes, yes,
contractor side. It takes
yes.
too long to get the
That's the
contract.
number one complaint.
Yeah.
It takes too long. It feels adversarial. So that was the first half of it, right? And then the second half of it was the supplier, right? Like, I'm a local business, never done this before.
Yeah.
Normally you would get like a 200-page PDF or something that you would like overwhelming. I hear this story all over again. Like, I get out my highlighters and I start highlighting things and trying to figure out. It's like I call it like a scavenger hunt that isn't fun.
Yeah, it's a
And
project. It's a project. The
it
application becomes the project itself.
exactly, it takes up more time than it does sometimes to actually like deliver the good or service. So we have reorganized this content that was created by the government agency and
Okay.
presented it in a way that is readable and intuitive. What we say is we help vendors read, understand, and respond to RFPs and bids more guided, more intuitively. And by far and away, like the vendors that are supplying in our system are saying, best experience ever. And because we're having them respond exactly in the way that the agency wants them to, what that does is that then creates fairness, objective fairness when it comes to the evaluation committees, the 5 or 6 or 7 people who are looking at these 10, 12 proposals. I mean, you have to put yourself in their shoes, right? That like that process for them, if you were to hand them like 12 proposals that are bound and copied, and like one person did it one way and the other person formatted it another way, how hard that is for them to objectively score something. So we just made it where it's like when they're looking at a vendor response, the references are in the same place. Their experiences are in the same place. Their project approaches are in the same place. They can line up all their pricing side by side. It can score it, based off of whether you're, lowest, highest, or somewhere in between. And they use weighted scores, to determine like how much are they going to weigh towards cost versus experience versus, versus the references versus an interview, say, for instance. So ultimately, and you've alluded to this, that if you can decrease the amount of time significantly to run a strategic sourcing project, and increase the ability for a small local business to compete for the same projects that those bigger companies that have been doing this for years and years and years, then the city benefits the most, and your local businesses benefit the most, right? Now we're connecting local businesses and cities in a way that they couldn't be connected before. Not to say that like, sometimes big companies have great solutions and like that's what you want to choose for. You want that experience for that project or that piece of software that you want. But sometimes it's better, to find that person in the local community who has that expertise. They just didn't know how to respond to an RFP or bid. Right. And we don't want to deny them the opportunity to do wonderful work for the communities that they live in. That is what we've done at ProcureNow.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it levels the playing field for businesses to actually come in, but also on the back end, it makes it much easier for staff to really pull these things together. Yeah, procurement is definitely a big deal, a big part of the conversation, especially now with money flowing down from the feds. Okay, we're going to put something in the infrastructure. Okay, what does that look like? And what does that mean for our businesses, particularly our small businesses, in accessing those opportunities? Yeah. Do you have any examples? And I don't know how many cities you've been able to work with the product, where you've seen some significant difference in who's responding and how they're making a decision? Because it sounds like it creates a lot more transparency too, to say, how did you make that decision? And
Absolutely.
Is it somebody you know?
Yeah, if you can go to our website, www.procurenow.com, and go to our resources page. We actually just released some customer success stories. City of Banning, Palmdale Water District, Mesa Public Schools, City of Norfolk is another one that we've done some a success story work with. City Milpitas. So if you search ProcureNow Milpitas, what they'll tell you is this: they'll say, hey, like, in the case of City Milpitas, they went out and normally it would take them 17 days just to build the terms section of a procurement for laptops, for instance. But with ProcureNow, they were able to build the entire solicitation, collaborate on it, get it released within a day,
Wow.
and source their quotes, and have it delivered in the same amount of time that they would have gone if that their normal process would have taken them. So, for them, it was like 17 days just to do the terms, and to 17 days to do the entire thing. And that's just a story that we hear over and over again. There is, on the internal side, less hunting and pecking, less, like passing Word documents around, less, adversarial conversations, and then more time to, yesterday, we were in the city of Groveland doing a local vendor supplier fair, with their procurement officer, something that they've never done before. And Chris Coghill, who was the head of procurement there, she was like, I just never had time to do this, because it was like mounds of paper, hunting and pecking, searching and replacing, copying and pasting. So not only does she now get the opportunity to have the time to get out and talk with and connect with her local vendor community and educate them on how to do business with, with the city. But you can imagine that she enjoys her job a lot better than she did.
Just a little bit more.
Yeah. What do you think they want to do? They want to do this, right?
So this tool really helps. So, we have a tool that you have that really helps with the efficiency of how we operate as cities. I think, Roshen, you have a great tool to look at how we could address equity in our policy making, especially around a big topic of affordable housing. But I want to bring Chris in before, because we probably have about 10 minutes or so before we have to wrap up. And I work with Chris here in Kansas City, but Chris, come to the stage, give a little introduction about yourself, talk a little bit about what you're doing in other cities. I know we got a couple of things that we could go back and forth on about what you're doing here in Kansas City as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nia. I'm Chris Offensend, co-founder and CEO at Qwally. Qwally is a platform that helps cities provide effective, integrated, and scalable support to local entrepreneurs and small businesses in their communities. Kind of our big kind of grand theory that we're building towards with Nia and folks in other cities is that we really believe that city governments and local government are kind of best positioned to play this a central role in their local entrepreneurial support ecosystem to help their businesses get connected to the right city departments for, if it's in terms of procurement or purchasing of something of that nature, or getting them connected to the right sort of technical assistance resources, or providing that technical assistance themselves, just how to make it easier to do business in a city. And we think that really happens when at the intersection of those small businesses, the city, and sort of the incubators, accelerators, chambers of commerce, SBA funded organizations that comprise local economies and local entrepreneurial ecosystems. So that's really the focus area for us. Sort of it maps to a little bit about kind of what Thao was talking about helping guide people through the process. I think we really focus in the area of everything that comes before a supplier or vendor is getting ready to become sort of a vendor or supplier to the city, and get ready to sort of go through that unfun scavenger hunt.
That's pretty much so how me and Chris met. Our city, I actually got to lead our startup and residency program, and so there were several departments that put out a call. I run an office where KC BizCare, we get the technical assistance for people who are trying to get a business license, and also how to procure with the city. So we're kind of like that liaison. We put a challenge out there, Qwally responded, and the selection committee really was excited about what they were doing. And I have not been impressed by everything they're doing. So they helped us develop some really, really great tools. Now, I know we've done a lot. Which ones do you want to talk about today?
Well, I think there's a lot of ways we could go. But I think, it would be great to sort of highlight sort of some of the work that we did sort of, at the onset of the pandemic, and sort of how, maybe sort of telling a little bit of the story about how sort of we worked together sort of with you to help figure out how your office could operate and support the businesses in your community sort of most optimally during those times. And I go back.
We had to do that pivot virtually like everyone
exactly.
else.
Yeah, it was like one of the last in-person meetings we had was meeting you for the first time in your office. So yeah, kind of the pandemic hit, and I think there was an immediate awareness that really needed to understand kind of what was it that small and minority-owned businesses really needed help with most, sort of navigating this whole paradigm shift that was happening around them. And I remember we quickly changed gears from sort of where we had started on sort of focusing on the business licensing process and some of the zoning clearance work to really just focusing on setting up a very detailed survey that businesses could still, although it was very detailed, businesses could quickly and easily fill it out. And I think we got well over 200 or 300 responses to that survey. And I think the questions that we had asked were really trying to get a deeper level of detail and try to understand kind of, rather than the top line, what's the problem? Is it access to capital? Is it sort of finding help for staff or employees? Sort of dig a little bit deeper. And I think the areas that we saw were in access to capital, and seeing that we were asking questions about whether businesses had a relationship with a banker, and we discovered that businesses that did have a relationship were 38% more likely to be approved for a loan, and that when they were seeking those loans, those businesses were seeking 8.3 times more capital when applying than those businesses that didn't have that relationship.
So I would say in layman's terms, what Qwally was able to help really build for us, our office in this city, is we pivoted our office virtually to our one-stop shop. We have our site, we have guides, we have customized checklists for people to understand the steps of starting a business. But he also gave us a tool, and the biggest thing that I've discussed with you guys is data. You'll be surprised with all these tools that I've seen in this city, and I don't know what other cities are looking like, how much data we don't have and how strategic we need to be about the type of data that we get. And working with Qwally has helped me better hone in to where I will soon be able to say, here's the state of small businesses here in Kansas City. I can break them down by category. I can break them down by however you want. Home-based businesses, commercial businesses, Black-owned businesses, Hispanic-owned businesses. What do you want? And how do I bring all that data together? And that's what impressed us about Qwally's pitch, is that they really gave us a tool to really do that. So I'm really appreciative, because this is really, for my job, it's really helped. So go back to your point, Thao, give me a tool that makes my job a lot easier so I can do some of the other things. And then also, in any tool that you guys build for cities, build data into that. If I can give you any advice, please build data into it and make it efficient, not just for us on the back end, make it easy for our citizens. We get rated on how they interact with us as cities and as individual departments and as individuals ourselves. So help us make it easier for folks to really access things and make it open for them to do business with the city. And I think you all have tools that really help meet that. And I know, Chris, you wanted to talk pretty quickly, because one of the things your tool did help us do is help us launch a program that we probably wouldn't be able to do without it. You want to talk a little bit about that from the developer end of it?
For sure. And I don't know if you wanted to give the lead into it. Sort of you created this program. It felt like almost out of thin air. But I think sort of following on from kind of those learnings from that survey kind of early in the pandemic, I think that gave sort of you a lot of really good insight into sort of what to look out for. And as the next version of the CARES Act was passing, and there was a second round of PPP loans, I think you seized that opportunity to sort of set up a program and a partnership between the city and the Heartland Black Chamber of Commerce and the KC Prospect Business Association to provide pro bono accounting services and technical assistance for small businesses that were seeking those PPP loans that maybe didn't get a chance to apply for one, or didn't know how, or didn't even know if they were eligible to apply for one in round one, and sort of better connect them with sort of with those accountants and with banks and help them navigate the process. And I remember, you sort of brought this idea to us like on a Friday, and I think, you know, by sort of not the following Monday, but the Monday after, we had something ready to go, and it was, you know, it was really exciting. We were able to sort of help sort of realize your program and sort of create the centralized application that the city would operate, and the whole sort of application portal there, but also that it was connected on the back end of the system so that your partners, the Heartland Chamber and the Prospect Business Association, could have access and see those applications, and then they would sort of be doing the sort of behind the scenes work of performing the matchmaking with the pro bono accountants. And then since they're doing that work, you know, they're still able to kind of feed data into the system about how are things going? Is this business eligible, or how did this turn out? Maybe they decided not to pursue a loan. And I think feeding that data back to you. So it was just creating a really streamlined way for you and the organizations that you already work with, just do that a lot more efficiently and really collaborate across, you know, not even within the city, but within and within and without the city, to really, you know, tie together all the resources in the community.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's been really successful.
It's been really successful. And I would say just from that work alone and the data we've been able to collect from the survey, as well as the PPP prep program, it's allowing us to continue our work in recovery. And I'll just say, for Chris's credit, that program, and just because of his system and the fact that we kind of build it just in time to get something going. Right now, we're almost at $2 million that we've helped our local businesses access and capital through relief efforts and other loan efforts. But it was just having a program and a system or process set up for our businesses to kind of work through to get what they need. But a lot of times it's about centralizing. So we have a couple of minutes left for our panel. And if anyone has any quick questions, we can try to jump in. I think I answered one of them. Oh my God, Matt, why did you share that article? There's a huge picture of me that I hate in that one. Please don't look that up. You just look up bizcare.kcmo.gov if you want to learn more about what Kansas City is doing. But I want to, if there's no more questions, I want to allow everybody to kind of give some closing remarks. You all were in this cohort, you know, if you want to give any feedback about that, or just your experience with GovTech and working with governments, but want to give you guys a quick minute to just give your closing remarks. And I'm going to change up the order a little bit. Thao, I'm going to have you go first because I know you're at a conference. So let's get you going first.
Yeah, of course. I really, really appreciate everybody joining us today. Thank you for hosting this, and you know, I have a little special place in my heart for the city of Kansas City as well. So it's good to see that you're continuing to be a leader in innovation for cities. You know, to me, like what, you know, CivStart, to other folks who are like considering you know, doing something in the entrepreneurial you know, GovTech space. You know, CivStart's been a wonderful way for us to connect. It's really important that when you're you know, out here on your own by yourself, and you know, you have a mission and a passion to do something, that you can have a group of people that you can bounce ideas off of, that you can share your experiences with, and also just like you know, as we meet more folks and we network more in local government, that we can actually share our networks with each other. And CivStart has been a wonderful place for that. You know, we get together on our Slack channels and we, you know, share ideas with each other, and you know, and that's what it's all about. You know, we have a responsibility to provide modern, responsible solutions to local governments, and to bring our best thinking. And you know, the folks here on the call that are part of CivStart are just a wonderful example of those types of folks who are bringing awesome ideas to local government technology. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And great job and great product that you guys have. Roshen, you want to go ahead and give your closing remarks?
Yeah, sure. No, I think some of the themes that I heard from all of us is just kind of this improving the unsexy processes and making things really effective, both for government and as well as the end users as well. And you know, something we're really proud of with Bloom Housing is our adoption rate. It started out kind of actually pretty high still in the 80s, but we were able to increase it to the 97% of people applying online. And I'm sure Thao and Chris, like you guys just have these things that are easy to adopt because you've designed them really well and built them for people and humans and people that are actually trying to get stuff done. So that's something that just is really inspiring for me, is just, yeah, people building in a really humane way. And all the startups in the CivStart cohort kind of focused on that.
Yeah, and again, I appreciate those of you who are out there building technology to help address real social issues in various communities. So I really applaud you all for going out there and trying to resolve those deep issues like that, and especially when it comes to having equity into it. And Chris, your closing remarks, you got any?
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely echo the sentiments of Thao and Roshen, but yeah, I think it's, in this cohort, we're all kind of bonded together by our just, passion for, this, what public institutions can do, equipped with the right tools to make those unsexy things, more streamlined or more effective, or make the unsexy sexy, I don't know. But I think, at the end of the day, for me, I think one thing I always keep coming back to is just like the individual people that we get to interact with, and also specifically kind of those small business owners and kind of the citizens themselves. I know we talk a lot about sort of how we work with our clients in government, but I think what's ultimately driving us at the end of the day is the anecdotes and the things that we hear when we talk to people who are sort of using our software for the first time, saying, this has literally saved me months, or just weeks or months of time, sort of getting me started, helping me. I would have wasted so much time trying to start my business or do this in a different way, and just really helping people sort of actualize and perform that self-determination that I think is a big part of staples of our democracy and our institutions. So really just proud to play a small role in that very big picture.
I mean, well, you all are bringing sexy back, so we appreciate that. So if there's any other government officials on this call that are listening today, as someone who's really new in this industry, I would totally recommend that you make friends with startups and you make friends with folks who are in the GovTech industry, because they can help make your work a lot easier. And at the end of the day, for those of you who are developers out there, please, in everything that you do, if you can create customer service as a part of it, how does it make it easier for us as cities to serve our citizens? You're going to have a win, regardless of what it is. And so that's any advice I can give you, and especially you guys who are on the conversation with us today. Please just remember that as you move forward. And I'm really thank you guys for being here. Before we wrap up, I know we have a closing slide to direct folks of what's coming next in the conference. Thank you for joining us. Boom, next slide, starting now. GovTech Startup Social and Virtual Event. Again, Chris, Roshen, Thao, thank you guys so much for joining us today. And thank you, GovTech, for inviting me to moderate. I had no idea what I was going to do, but this was a great conversation. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And feel free to stop over at the GovTech Startup Social and Virtual Exhibit time. Thank you.
Thanks, Nia.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Nia. Thanks, everyone.